Hi. So for my project, I decided to do something that dealt specifically with language. So I called my dad, or FaceTimed him rather, and he speaks Korean. So I asked him to teach me something, and he would only speak Korean through the process. And I lived in Korea in high school for a year and a half, but I never picked up the language enough to understand what he was telling me. So the first few sentences, I knew he was introducing himself, he was saying hello, but after that, I was entirely lost. So I told him before the he started teaching me that he could teach me anything, something religious, it could be sports, business, or whatnot. And he picked something without telling me and just went for it. And so it actually, I think it was about half of the time I had no idea even the topic he was addressing. And then halfway through, I recognized the name Jesus Christ. He was saying it in Korean, but I recognized it. And so I knew he was speaking about something religious, but by the end, I had no idea what it had been about. And so at the end, I asked him, "Hey, what did you teach me about?" And he had just been giving instructions about how to say a prayer. And one thing that was really interesting about that was, obviously, I know how to say a prayer. I do that often. And I knew that knowledge, but I had no idea that was what he was communicating it to me. So when I put that in the frame of reference of educators and the education system, that really goes to show that just because people are not understanding what we're saying, because they don't speak English, doesn't mean that they're at a lower level than people who do speak English. They may completely grasp what, if we were able to talk in their language, they could completely grasp what we were saying or even already know that. But that language barrier just prevents any of that being communicated or understood. So that was one main thought I had. I wrote down some notes. Walking into this, I felt like, oh, I've had that experience. I lived in Korea. I was part of the minority of what I spoke and the language that I used. But this also really made me stop and reflect that my experience in Korea is not synonymous with people who move to the US and don't speak English. And obviously, every situation is different. But I could get around in Korea by speaking English. A lot of people knew enough that I could communicate with them in English. I sometimes would try to use Korean, but not as often. And so a lot of times people who come to America, they don't have that luxury of speaking Arabic or Spanish or things like that, and assuming that they could get by with that with most people. So that was another thought that I had, and I think it's just really good to have that awareness as we interact with people that don't speak the same language as us. And then, yeah, I think just a big part of this was to help with awareness that there are people out there that, or at least in our futures, we're gonna come across people that aren't going to speak English, and students, and we need to be accommodating of that, and we need to be understanding and to work with them. And like I said earlier, to not assume that they're at a lower level just because they can't speak English. They can be incredibly intelligent and just need that barrier crossed over. It's interesting that this assignment came up just as I was starting my elementary practicum, and one of the students in my class speaks Portuguese and very little English. And walking into practicum, I was really nervous about that. But this assignment helped to bring an awareness and a little bit of maybe preparation. And I'm realizing as I go that you just work with the students and take it one step at a time. And the beautiful thing about theater is that it accesses our bodies and things like that. And so I'm able to use that to communicate and do different things. And I'm certainly still figuring things out as I go. But like I said, I think this assignment was really helpful in building awareness and, opening up a conversation about these matters, and building empathy and compassion for people who have immigrated and don't speak English entirely. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the assignment. Thanks.